and share a screen so that you all can see some pictures of some wolves. And there we are. And maybe we can also, everybody can see Rick there and I'm there in a little square. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our program, The Wolves of Yellowstone for Kids, with our special guest, Rick McIntyre. We're so excited to have Rick with us today. My name is Julie Jackson, and I'm a librarian at the City of Mountain View Public Library. We also have another librarian with us this afternoon, Miss Renee. She'll be helping monitor the chat. As you can tell, this is a webinar, so we can't see your faces today, but we will be able to take your questions in the chat. So we'll be taking those questions later on. Now I'd like to introduce our special guest. Rick McIntyre is one of the most celebrated wolf experts in America. He served with the National Park Service for 42 years. He's the author of many books about wolves. There we are. This is a series of 3 books that he's written or is in the midst of writing. The first one is The Rise of Wolf 8. The next is The Reign of Wolf 21. Now, these are books that were written for grown-ups. And then the third book is going to be coming out, and that will be called The Redemption of Wolf 302. He's speaking to us today from his home in Montana, which is just outside of Yellowstone National Park. So welcome, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see if we can put a spotlight on Rick. Let's see, I'll spotlight you. There, now hopefully,
okay.
I'm not sure. Renee can let us know if that worked. Hopefully that means that people can see you and my slideshow. Does that seem to be working, Miss Renee?
The slideshow is the main part of the screen for most people, and then both of you are small on top, just so you know.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just leave it like this just for a tiny bit. Rick, I wanted to ask you, how many years have you been going out and observing the wolves?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the program, Julie. I have a lot of admiration for librarians and libraries, so happy to do something to pay back libraries that have done so much for me over the years. My first paid job was to work in a library, so I go back a long ways. Regarding wolves, I grew up in Massachusetts, where wolves had been killed off more than 100 years before I was born. But I started working for the National Park Service, and that included going to Alaska to Denali National Park. I was there for 15 summer seasons, and that's where I first began to see and study wolves. Later, I switched to Glacier National Park in northern Montana. There were wolves there too. Then finally ended up in Yellowstone in 1994. That was the year before the Yellowstone wolf reintroduction program. We'll talk about that in detail shortly. And then I've been in Yellowstone ever since. We're just about to have the 26th anniversary of the release of the original wolves in Yellowstone. So that's a whole story we can tell.
Wonderful. And so there, for all of you, you can see on the map, there's where Yellowstone is located in that red square there in the upper left corner of that's Wyoming, right?
That's right. Yes.
And as you know, we are all out here in California by that orange star. So to get started, we thought it might be fun to ask all of you what you know about wolves. We have some questions prepared. So Miss Renee, if you want to go ahead and launch the first question, we thought we'd get a sense of what you all know. There you are. So how many wolves do you all think are in the Yellowstone area? And there, Rick, you can see they're voting. And Rick will be able to tell us what the correct answer is. So we'll just give you all a few minutes to let us know what you think. Looks like more than half of you have voted already. Okay, go ahead and put your final answer in, and Renee, you can share the results with everybody. Okay, I think, have you shared the results? Can you see them, everybody? It looks like everybody can. So it looks like the winning number was 500 wolves in Yellowstone. What do you think, Rick? Did they get it right?
Well, I'm afraid not, but 30% did get it right. The average population is 100. So
100
wolves, yes, Yellowstone is about half the size of the state of Massachusetts. It's about 3,500 square miles. It's a very, very large national park. But a wolf pack, meaning a wolf family, needs a large territory for them to hunt in. So a
Well,
typical
maybe we should.
territory here is about 300 square miles, 300 square miles. And with Yellowstone being about 3,500 square miles, that works out to an average of about 10 packs. A pack average is about 10 members. So that's how we end up with an average of about 100 wolves for such a large area.
Okay, let's see. So I think you may have just answered one of the next questions here. Let's see who is listening. Renee, you want to launch the second poll? How many wolf packs do you think are in the Yellowstone area?
Yeah, sorry, I gave that one away.
That's okay. We're testing them to see who's listening. So we're just asking questions, and Rick is going to give us the right answer. Let's go ahead and end this poll and share the results. So it looks like
Okay, they
everybody's
got it
been
right.
paying attention. Hooray. So now let's ask the third question. And that is going to be, how many wolves are in a pack? So these are like family groups of wolves. How many do you think is the common number of wolves within one pack? And it looks like, oh boy, almost everybody's voted. Let's go ahead and share the results. How did they do on this one, Rick?
Yeah, I think I gave away that one too, so I'm not much of an educator.
They've
Yes,
got good
10
math
is
skills.
correct. Yeah, yeah, that's right. They're good at math. Yes, it is about 10. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but a wolf pack is very much like a large human family where there's the father wolf. He's usually known as the alpha male. The mother wolf is known as the alpha female. There would be young adults that might be 1 to 2 to 3 years old. They would be like adult children still in the family. And then wolf pups, they're born in the spring. So very much like a large extended human family. The largest pack we've ever had was the Druid Pea Pack. And for a brief time, they numbered 38. But then they started to subdivide.
Wow, that's quite a bit over 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think we have one more question. Miss Renee can launch our last question for everybody. Who do you all think is the boss of that pack, the wolf family? People are a little slower with the answer on this one. Give people just another minute to decide. Okay, make your choices and we're going to show the results. And we can find out from Mr. Rick McIntyre the real answer here. Who is the boss of the wolf family, Rick?
Well, I'm afraid this time folks didn't do quite so well because it's always the mother wolf. Yes, she is the true leader of the pack. She organizes the pack year round. So she's the equivalent of the president of the wolf pack. The alpha male, the top male, his responsibility is to go on hunts and be the primary provider for the family, to bring back food and to defend the family from rival wolves. But he just works for the alpha female. She's the one that's really in charge. And some people think that maybe that's a sign of how sophisticated their species is, that they acknowledge that the females are really the ones that should be running the show. What do you think, Julie?
I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
But so you're saying that the alpha males, they're the protectors, but the alpha females, they're more the deciders of
Yes,
when to
yes.
hunt.
So so the pictures that we have on the screen right now, if you can leave them there for a moment, if you look at the upper picture, the wolf on the right is our most famous male wolf, number 21. He is a main character in my first two books, and he is meeting for the first time Wolf 42, a female, and they paired off. They ran the Druid pack for many, many years, and she was the true leader of the pack, and that actually made his life easier. So he was essentially the heavyweight champion of Yellowstone, never lost a fight with another wolf. So it was easy for him to protect his family and win fights. It was easy for him to go out and hunt. But to make big decisions about where to den, how to raise the pups, how to organize the family, how to deal with wolves that aren't getting along and are squabbling, that would have been very hard for him. And that she knew how to do all of that. So she was very good at being in charge of everything and organizing everything. It made his life a lot easier.
And so what happens to the father wolf if he doesn't do what the mother wolf tells him to do?
Well, it's pretty embarrassing in front of all of his male friends. She bites him on the rear end. That's what you get if you don't do what you're told by the females. He had a lot of holes in his rear end.
Well, let's see.
Okay, Rick, this is Mr. Nay. I've been watching the chat, and some people in the chat have some questions already. Would you like to answer them now?
Sure, yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, so one question that has come up quite a few times is, are wolves endangered or threatened?
Well, for a long time they were. It varies from time to time and place to place. So I'll start answering that question by saying that wolves used to be a very widespread animal throughout all of North America, from the Arctic Ocean down into Mexico. But starting in the 1600s, people started to kill them off. A lot of people used to hate wolves and wanted to exterminate them. So most of the wolves in North America were killed off, including in our country. So that put them on the endangered species list. But in recent decades, we've succeeded in restoring wolves in places where they used to live. That includes Yellowstone. So in recent decades, they've been doing much better. And in many places where they were on the endangered species list, there's enough of them that they've been taken off that list.
Great. And another question we had is, can wolves eat anything other than meat?
Yes, I have seen wolves here eat berries. They do occasionally eat plants, but meat is their primary diet. They are carnivores, and the main prey animals here would be elk and bison. Sometimes moose, sometimes deer, but mainly elk and bison.
I have another question. It's awfully cold by you right now, isn't it? How do the wolves stay warm, like at night? And
Well, they're way better than I am. I don't have much resistance to the cold, so no matter how many layers I put on in the winter here, it's hard for me to stay warm. But they have very, very thick fur all over their body. And I remember years ago, I was out one day and it was minus 56 degrees, and I could not handle it at all. And the wolves that I was watching, they were just curled up in the snow and sleeping away like it was a nice warm summer afternoon. So they have no problem with cold weather. But also they can live in desert areas. So I've already mentioned that they can live all the way up in the northern part of our continent along the Arctic Ocean and desert areas too. So it's said that except for humans, wolves are the most widespread large mammal species in the world. They can pretty much take any client.
We
okay,
have
well,
more.
maybe I will. You have another one?
We have many, many questions over in the chat.
Okay, let's take one more, and
okay.
then we'll ask Rick to tell us a story.
Oh, okay. One question is about wolves and what they look like. How big are they and what color are they usually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. An average Yellowstone wolf is about 100 pounds. And there's a lot of variation. Some, like people, are a little bit smaller than average. Some are a little bit bigger than average. We'll be talking some about Wolf 21. We've already mentioned his story a little bit. He was bigger than average. He was probably about 120 pounds. An average female might be about 90 to 95 pounds. When a wolf pup is born, it's probably about 10 or 12 ounces, something like that. And then they grow up fast. By the time a wolf has its first birthday, 1 year old, it's probably getting to be about 70 or 80 pounds. That would be maybe equivalent to a human kid getting to be about 12 or 14 years old.
Okay, well, we know that your first book was about Wolf 8. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Wolf 8?
Sure. Wolf 8 was one of the first wolves that was brought down in the reintroduction. That was in 1995. So to review for a section, wolves were a native animal when Yellowstone was established as the first national park in the world in 1872. But the early park rangers, like pretty much everyone else in the world in the old days, hated wolves, thought that they were no good. And it's hard to believe this, but the park rangers in Yellowstone killed every wolf off by 1926. The Park Service here and the rangers eventually realized that that had been a big, big mistake. So the rangers tried to figure out how they could make up for that mistake. And to make a long story short, we figured out a way to reintroduce wolves. We captured some alive in Canada, brought them down. One of the first wolves to arrive in Yellowstone was a pup known as number 8. He came down with his family. And his story is one of, he was the runt of his litter. So he had 4 brothers. They were all the same age. And he was the smallest of the wolves. And when he was young, he was picked on and bullied and beaten up by his brothers all the time. So he had a pretty tough life when he was young. But after he and his family were released in Yellowstone, he really blossomed. He really came into his own. He became a very courageous, a very brave wolf. He saved his brothers from being killed by a grizzly bear. So he became a great hero. He still was smaller than average, but that didn't stop him. And the most important moment of his life was when he came across another wolf family. He was still very young, the equivalent of a teenager in human years. And the father wolf in that family had died. The mother wolf had 8 pups. She was desperate for help. 8 came along. He befriended her pups. She was very impressed by that. So she invited him to join her family as her mate and as the new alpha male. He adopted her 8 pups and he essentially became their father. He raised them. And that's a very unusual thing in wild animals. In contrast, in Africa, the lions, if a new male lion comes into a pride, one of the first things he does is to kill the cubs that were born to the previous father. So wolves are exactly the opposite. So that good deed, that act of compassion that we saw A2, that really impressed us. And despite still being a little bit undersized, he turned out to be a great alpha male and great adopted father. And the following year, he became a father on his own, a biological father.
What an amazing story. I know we're getting overwhelmed with questions, right, Renee?
Well, can I, maybe I'll make a suggestion to our audience. There are two places where you can ask questions. One is the chat, and one is something called Q&A. It's at the bottom of your screen. It's another option. If you would like a question, if you would like Mr. McIntyre to answer a question, why don't you put it in the Q&A? And then the people in the chat can just chat, and we won't have to worry about the questions, finding the questions in the chat, and then you don't have to worry about that. We'll just be looking at the Q&A questions, and there are a lot there already, so we can we may not even get to all of them today.
I thought that I would ask, I imagine some of the people in the chat might be asking about wolves howling. How often do you hear the wolves howl, Rick? And can you explain to us what they're doing by howling?
Sure. It's a great subject to get into. I'm sure all of you have heard recordings of wolves howling or seen documentaries where there's a video of them howling. It's their method of communication with each other. So a wolf family is not always together as a unit. They sometimes go off in different directions. And by howling, they can stay in touch with each other. It's kind of their version of the internet or texting. And they can, I think, convey information to each other, such as where they are. I think they also can convey emotions to each other. And for me, one of the fun things about howling, the mating season for wolves is in the middle of the winter in February. So a young male, the equivalent of a teenager, will leave his family. And as he tries to find a mate, he takes the chance of going into the territory of a neighboring pack, which can be a dangerous thing to do because they would maybe view him as a threat. But he will start to howl. That's the equivalent of kind of advertising his availability, a chat room or something like that. And then there may be some young teenage daughters in that family. They'll hear the guy howling. They'll be interested. And then what often happens is they'll run over and meet the guy. And that can be the start of a long-term relationship. That's how a new wolf pack will form. Our most famous, one of our more famous wolves, and he's the star of the third book, is Wolf 302. And he was just a very, very good looking male wolf, just a gorgeous wolf. And all the females wanted to be with him. So he was a very popular guy. When he howled, the females came running.
So when do the wolves have their babies?
The pups here in Yellowstone, we're getting very close to the birthing season. It's going to be about the middle of April. They breed in February. It takes about 2 months for the gestation to work. And an average litter is about maybe 6 pups altogether, 6 pups born in mid-April.
Renee, do you want to interject some questions?
Sure. One popular question is, where do wolves live in the world?
So if you picture a map of the world, we already mentioned that it used to be all of North America, as well as all of Europe and all of Asia, and then the northern part of Africa. So almost everything except the main part of Africa, and then not South America or Australia.
Okay, another question is, how do they find food? How do they do their hunting?
Mhm. Well, probably for a wolf, that is the hardest and the most dangerous aspect of their lives. I think I mentioned that the average weight of an adult wolf is 100 pounds. So they are apex predators. And what that means is that they hunt very large prey animals. So elk here, which is the primary prey animal that wolves hunt, they get up to 700 pounds. We have a picture on the screen. If we can hold this here for a moment, this is a picture of a wolf pack confronting a bison. A bison can be anywhere from 1,000 pounds to 2,000 pounds. So look at the size difference between these wolves and that bison. But the reason why wolves have been so successful as a species is they are team players. They work as a team, just like a football team does, a soccer team, etc. So an average wolf of 100 pounds trying to fight a 2,000-pound bison, that's not going to end well. But if you have a bunch of teammates and you can work together, then that's the way that they succeed. So that's their secret of survival. They work well as teammates.
Those
And
are
I'll
females.
expand.
Those are females
Yes,
and males together.
yes. In fact, I'll expand upon that a little bit. We've already said that the males on the average weigh more than the females. However, the females on the average are faster than the males. So in a typical hunt, it's probably a young teenage female that's the fastest member of the pack. Her job is to catch up with an elk as it's running away. And if she can just grab a hind leg and hold on, she's going to act as a drag that will slow the elk down. The problem with that is she might be kicked in the face with the other hind leg of the elk. So it's a very dangerous thing for her to be doing. But what can save the day is if her twin sister runs up and helps out by grabbing the other hind leg. So now they're really slowing the elk down. And then one of the older wolves, maybe their father, will run in, and he has to do something that's also very, very dangerous. What he may try to do is to get in front of the elk and then jump up in the air as high as he can and grab the elk by the throat. That's the most efficient way to kill an elk. A wolf has maybe about 1,000 pounds of pressure. So he has to hold on for a couple of minutes, but if he can do that, that's his contribution to the family. Now, an experienced older female can do that maneuver as well. So not just the big males. So the point is that they work together as a team, and they're very, very good at cooperating together, very good at teamwork. That's their secret.
I think I saw some earlier questions about, how close do you get to the wolves? And do you touch them? Are they friendly? Are you afraid of them?
Sure. Uh-huh. Sure, those are all good questions, and I'm happy to talk about that. So the average distance where I watch wolves is about a mile away. There's a lot of reasons for that. We don't want to interfere in their lives. Also, it's normal for wild wolves to be afraid of people because of all the wolves that humans have killed over the years. So they have good reason to be afraid of us. And we actually want them to continue to have a natural fear of people, because wolves that grow up in Yellowstone, if they were to leave the safety of the national park, there is legal wolf hunting in the surrounding states. So it's kind of like parents teaching their kids the issue of stranger danger, that not every adult out there is a danger to kids, but some are. So if we had a wolf that seemed to be losing its natural fear of people and kind of getting used to the park visitors, we would try to turn that behavior around. We would yell at the wolf, maybe even hit it with a rubber bullet, so it kind of relearns its natural fear of people, its natural desire to be a certain distance away from people, a certain safe distance. So that was part of my job when I worked in Yellowstone, to convey that information to people. The safest thing for wolves is to be wary of human beings.
Miss Renee, do you want to ask some more questions?
Yeah, people have a lot of questions about how wolves eat and how they find food. A couple are, do they ever steal food from other animals, like bears who have stored their food? And how old are the young pups when they start hunting?
Also some good questions. So I've seen pups that are only about 5 or 6 months old participate in hunts. And then maybe when they're about 8 or 9 months old, even make kills on their own. So they're very fast learners. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of that question?
Do wolves ever steal food from other animals?
Oh, yes, yeah. Thanks for asking that, or whoever did ask it. So, by the way, people are asking about the rubber bullet, so let me mention that. No, it just causes them some pain that they will remember. It does not penetrate the skin. So it would be maybe like for a person being hit by a soccer ball, it's going to get your attention and it's going to hurt a little bit, but it's not really going to harm you. So a rubber bullet, not a metal one. Let's see, refresh my memory where we were. I got a little distracted.
Sure.
What was the last question we were dealing with?
Stealing food
Oh,
from other
yeah, yeah.
animals.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yes. So there's a major competition in Yellowstone among our two biggest predators, two of our biggest predators. There would be wolves and grizzly bears, and they don't like each other. And wolves are much more efficient predators than grizzlies are. So grizzlies all the time will try to steal a kill from wolves. And we've talked about how an average wolf is about 100 pounds. Grizzlies here can be up to 600 pounds. So they're way bigger and stronger than wolves. And they can oftentimes get what they want. Now, our most famous wolf, number 21, who I've already mentioned a few times, the heavyweight champion among wolves, even he could not have an all-out fight with a grizzly and win, but he was a very clever wolf, a very smart wolf. So if he killed an elk and he brought his family over to feed on it, and then a grizzly bear stole it from him, he had a technique of dealing with bears. This is something that wouldn't work for a person, so none of you try this, but here's what he would do. He would sneak around to the rear end of the bear and bite him right in the rear end. That would get the bear's attention. It would get the bear really mad. The bear would chase 21, and as 21 was leading him away from the carcass, 21's family would come in and eat. And then when the bear realized that he was being tricked, he would run back to the carcass, and 21 would bite him on the rear end again, and there'd be another chase. So 21 was smarter than the average grizzly bear, and he could get away with that because he was so fast and agile. He could easily run 35 miles an hour. I can't do that, so I've never bitten a bear on the rear end.
Okay, you want some more questions?
Why not?
People want to know, many people want to know how wolves are related to dogs.
Okay, another great question. They're the same species. So the scientific name for a wild wolf is Canis lupus. The generally accepted scientific name for a pet dog, regardless of the breed, is Canis lupus familiaris. You could translate as that, the familiar wolf, the wolf that lives with us. So there's some debate on exactly how we converted a few wild wolves, maybe 20, 30,000 years ago, to domesticated versions of the wolves, the dog. Some people think that maybe it happened by early humans stealing some wolf pups out of a den and raising them in a human context. Another theory is that some young wolves just happened to be really fascinated by humans, began to hang around villages. They began to be fed by people, and that tamed them. And then they became dogs. So after a few generations in a human environment, what had been their wild wolf ancestry began to change. Wolves are very social animals. They're very oriented to living in a family situation, working together, getting along. And so it was a very natural fit for them to start living with humans as what we consider dogs. And then all the different types of dogs, all the different breeds, that just gradually happened over the years. But probably the breed of dog that looks the most like a wolf would be a German Shepherd. And dogs have pretty much most of the same abilities that wild wolves have: their sense of smell, their sense of sight, their loyalty to their family. So all the stories you've ever heard of heroic dogs that saved their owner from a grizzly bear attack or a mountain lion attack, all that comes from the wolf ancestry, their loyalty to their family. And their playfulness, that's another thing that comes from their wolf ancestries. Wolves love to play, the pups and even the adults too.
Great. And people would like to know, how can you tell the female and the males apart from so far away?
Well, the females are a little bit smaller than the males, and they have a separate hierarchy. So if you see two adult wolves or even younger wolves that are getting into a dispute and an argument, and they maybe get into a tussle, it's pretty much always going to be either two females or two males. So the males and the females get along very well with each other. By the way, if we can leave this picture on the screen for a moment, I'll get to this to explain it, because this is a real interesting picture. So if you see squabbling wolves, probably either two sisters or two brothers. And the size difference, but other than that, they pretty much look the same. Now, this is a real intriguing picture because I've mentioned Wolf 302. He's the wolf on the right. And that's his first meeting with a female wolf, one of 21's daughters in the Druid Peak Pack. So this is in their mating season in February, and he is taking the initiative to come toward her. And do you see how it looks like he's almost like he's bowing to her, where his front end is lower than his rear? I think most of the folks listening to us have seen when dogs play, they do a play bow. And that is dog language, like, I want to be friends, I want to play with you, do you want to be my friend? And that's pretty much what he's doing to her. And the next picture, if we could find it, would show her doing the same thing to him. So she was very interested in meeting him, and vice versa. That was good old 302. And then this is a similar picture. We've already seen that, but that other picture is the first meeting between our two most famous wolves, number 21, the male on the right, and his long time mate, 42, on the left. So here they're a little bit further along in their meeting, where they're actually sniffing noses. And this is literally in the first few minutes that they met. After this picture was taken, she jumped up on her back. They play bowed together. They romped around together. They played chasing games. So it'd be kind of like two dogs meeting together for the first time in a dog park, and they both want to be friends. They just start playing together. So all of that is one more thing that comes from their wolf ancestry. What's different about wolves and dogs, though, is a pair like 21 and 42, where they're meeting for the first time, they stay together for the rest of their life. So they're inseparable. So it's just like a very, very long time married couple. Like, some of you may have grandparents that have been together for 30, 40, 50 years. 21 and 42 spent 2/3 of their life together. And they were the greatest pair that we ever had here. They were very devoted to each other.
It looks like we have about 5 more minutes left. I don't know if there's time to talk more about Wolf 21, or should we just take another couple questions?
Yeah, questions are fine with me.
Okay. Miss Renee, do you see some more?
Yeah. Do wolves have any natural predators?
Well, I would say yes, in the sense that wolves are aggressive to each other over territory, just like people are. So in a protected area like Yellowstone, the most common cause of death for one of our wolves is fighting to defend its family and its territory from a rival pack. Outside of national parks, where hunting and trapping is allowed, it's totally different. The most common cause of death for a wolf in those areas would be to be killed by people. So it's been said that there are no two species on Earth that are so similar in social behavior as wolves and people. We've already talked about how they work as a team, they function as a family organization. But on the other hand, they're very territorial. And once they have a good territory, they need that to support their family. If they lose it, they may all die. So they are very aggressive in defending themselves if a rival pack come into their territory. By the way, this is a picture of 21 and 42 when they were very old. They were both born with jet black fur. And like people, as they got older, they got grayer and grayer. The older they got, the more they looked like each other.
Yeah, I noticed that these are called gray wolves, right? Yet a lot of them seem to have more of a black coat.
Yes, many thousands of years ago, there was a bit of mutation where one pup was born with black fur. And it turned out that genetically it gave that animal some advantages, but gray wolves have advantages too. So in Yellowstone, about half of our wolves are black, half are gray. And what's been real interesting about the color differences is we find that a black wolf prefers a mate that's the opposite of him. So most wolf pairs here, most wolf parents are one black wolf and one gray wolf. They like opposites of each other.
That's so interesting. Well, Renee, do you want to pick one last audience question?
Sure. And I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone's question. There really were a lot of questions. But the last one I have is, it's about injured wolves. And so if you see that a wolf is injured, do you intervene? Do you take care of the wolf?
That's another good question. Normally, the National Park Service, that's the federal agency that runs national parks, normally not. However, what I can say is that the other members of an injured wolf's pack will take care of the animal. So for example, one of 21's sons got injured in a battle with a rival pack. He had a really serious leg injury. And as he was resting up and recuperating, as he couldn't travel, the other members of his family would bring food to him. That was understandable that his parents would do that and his adult brothers and sisters. But I even saw a young pup carry an elk leg from a carcass a long ways and give it to his big brother. So they will take care of each other. They have a great sense of empathy. And maybe since we're close to finishing up, can I tell my favorite wolf story here? Do we have enough time for that? Okay, yes. So we've talked a lot about Wolf 21. He was the toughest, strongest wolf that we ever had, invincible in battle. But he never killed a defeated opponent. But what I'd like to tell you about this short story is when he was younger, when he was still in his original family, he was the equivalent of probably a son, maybe about 18 or 19 years old. He was helping his mother and his adopted father raise the new litter of pups. So he worked very hard to go out on kills. He would fight with elk, he would make a kill, he would bring back food to his mother and the new pups. But this one particular year, there was one little male pup that had something wrong with him. We never quite understood whether it was something about his eyesight or his physical development, but he was usually alone. The other pups were off playing. He didn't understand where they were. He didn't know how to find them. And they actually kind of avoided him because to them, he was kind of acting strange and they didn't understand what was wrong. So this one day I watched 21 come back from a very hard, difficult hunt. He was tired, he was exhausted. He gave food to his mother and the healthy pups. And then he just stopped and he looked around and I had a hint what he was looking for. And sure enough, I was right. He was looking for his sick little brother. So he walked over to where that pup was all by himself and essentially just hung out with them for some time after that, kind of like someone's big brother hanging out with his sick little brother, or kind of like a Make-A-Wish kid that wants the NFL player to come and to his hospital bed. So 21 had that sense of empathy in his life, that he was aware someone in his family was sick, was troubled, was having a hard time. He was aware of that, and he did something about it. And when I talk about that, I like to ask people, especially younger folks, if they've ever had a day at school where they've been picked on, or the teacher didn't like them for some reason, or things just weren't good that day, and you come home and you're kind of sad and depressed, and you're kind of thinking, gee, I don't really have many friends or many people that like me in this world. And you're down on yourself, and you get home and your dog is there, and your dog wants to be your friend. Your dog wants to hang out with you. Your dog wants to play with you. And so if you've ever had that kind of experience in your life, and I hope all of you have with a canine friend, or perhaps another kid in the neighborhood that wants to be your friend when times are hard, that's a sense of empathy, of understanding that someone needs help and wanting to do something about it. And that's what I loved about 21 so much. Again, he was the toughest wolf in the world, but again, in many ways, he was the most gentle and caring wolf in the world. So he is my ideal of what a wolf is all about.
Uh-huh. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for all that you shared with us today. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts. You've just kind of told us all what we can all learn from wolves.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly what I can do is to invite people to visit us in Yellowstone. I'm pretty easy to find out there. I'm out there every day. We see wolves pretty much every day. So come to Yellowstone and experience this stuff in person.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, all of you audience members. I'm sorry we didn't have time for all the questions, but I hope you enjoyed it, and that you'll look for Rick McIntyre in his books and at Yellowstone Park. Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.